welcome back. Seeing folks filter into the room. Let us know in the chat where you're from. Say hello. We've got great session ahead of you today, and we're so thankful that you're joining us. We know there's a lot of great content, but I think this is going to be a really important session for any of us who are navigating misinformation, navigating skepticism, navigating tough questions. And I think we're going to have a great session here led by TechSoup about how to explore and move through that. So I'm thrilled to bring on the stage today Elizabeth Orbison and Michael Enos from TechSoup. Elizabeth is a nonprofit strategist and communications leader with a deep focus on systems change, narrative power, and inclusive technology. She serves as the executive director of the Digital Impact Alliance at the United Nations Foundation, where she leads initiatives that advance responsible digital transformation, which we love here, and equitable data governance. Also love that. Elizabeth brings over 15 years of experience working across philanthropy, global development, and public interest technologies, such as roles at Luminate, Omidjar Network, and the UN Foundation. Michael Enos is a technology strategist and a nonprofit leader with over 2 decades of experience driving digital transformation in the social sector. As Senior Director of Community and Platform at TechSoup, he leads global initiatives that empower civil society organizations with access to technology, training, and capacity building resources. Michael is known for bridging IT strategy with community needs, ensuring that nonprofits of all sizes can use technology effectively and ethically. Prior to joining TechSoup, Michael held leadership roles in nonprofit IT operations and has long been an advocate for responsible innovation, open data, and AI literacy. So hopefully y'all can tell why we're so excited to have Elizabeth and Michael here today. And they're going to have a great perspective, great information, and we hope you leave with tons of great takeaways. So Elizabeth and Michael, I will let you kick it off from here.
AI trust and the nonprofit mission to build trust with all of you. I think we should have our first and maybe our second disclosure. Our first is that in our prep, we did use an AI agent, one of our internal tools, and it presented us with an agenda for 60 minutes. We obviously have 25, as Jen referenced. So we've scaled it back, and we want to go ahead and let you know that we're going to put our LinkedIn in the messaging in the chat and to reach out to us if you have questions or want to cover other things after we leave. And the second quick disclosure is I think that the AI may be hallucinated. I only work at TechSoup. I'm head of operational excellence. I don't have a relationship with the UN, maybe yet, hopefully one day. And I also happen to be on the SF CASA board. And I'm bringing that up because both Michael and I have experience working with smaller nonprofits and especially around AI and stakeholders. And I'm very happy to be here today with my coworker and ally, Michael Enos.
Thanks everybody for joining. I'm looking forward to sharing what we do at TechSoup here. So,
thanks, Michael, and thanks, Jen, for the great introductions. So before we start, we just kind of want to put out a disclaimer that we're going to talk about a lot, and something that we think that all of you should keep in mind, and we keep in mind every day whether we're working with AI or working across cybersecurity and security for our systems, and it's that whether it pertains to staff, donors, users, members, or volunteers, this data has been entrusted to us, and it's our responsibility to protect it. We are committed to ensuring that such data remains within our enterprise boundaries and not exposed to third-party tools or large language models without rigorous review, contractual safeguards, and explicit control mechanisms. And Michael and I will dig into those control mechanisms and the safeguards in a bit. And data protection is not just a compliance requirement, it's a core value that guides our decisions about technology and our AI integration. And as we've heard throughout the conference, there are great ways to augment and support your fundraising efforts. And we're excited about the gains and potential, and we love to help our staff do them every day and other nonprofits. But by balancing our responsibility with potential impact and innovation gains, I often think of something that Warren Buffett says. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll definitely do things differently. And that definitely has been on our mind as we build across TechSoup's enterprise, all sorts of things, including AI. What we're going to recommend is not stuff often talked about at galas and cocktails parties, but important for maintaining trust for the org and with donors. So I'm going to set the landscape where it applies to trust within our stakeholders. Donors like our staff are not a monolithic group. They have different levels of interest and understanding concerns about AI and many other things. Their attitudes towards AI are impacted by demographics, age, income, industry, and I'm sure a variety of other things. With changing patterns in giving, we know that AI can impact our organizations and our relationship with our donors. But we also feel that several of our donors want us to use AI to improve messaging about impact, finance, and organizational effectiveness. Also, our staff has varying degrees of understanding AI. And we feel that it's important to understand that before we dig in and build use cases and give them access. But the converse side is AI is everywhere. Gone are the days where confidential information is on a floppy disk, a lockbox on someone's desk. There's an Instagram meme going around about that at the moment, or on-prem protected drives. And so we feel it's important that this is a great time to dig in and review what's going on with your staff, whether it's AI or else. And we encourage your org to check in on trust, culture, and communication before jumping into very specific use cases, especially where it involves data. And the last two things is this never happens in a vacuum. We build AI with a team. Michael and I are on it. We'll provide some details about it in a minute. And you should never build these things alone, especially where it involves data. And you should include your technology teams and compliance teams, and you should document it so it bolsters your expertise and you're able to use it later. And echoing the highlights from yesterday's conference materials, humans make AI wonderful and meaningful. AI strengthens what your team already brings to fundraising and relationships. AI won't replace your team's empathy, creativity, and innovation. Your organization needs to evolve together and decide which components of AI to use org-wide and who and how you'll grow your expertise. And one last thing, Michael and I always talk about this. AI isn't the only option. It's a tool in the toolkit, but not the only option, especially when it comes to your donors who are wary and have expressed concerns. So Michael, you're going to walk us through the exciting topic of risks and trust.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great start. I think that when we sort of saw this all starting to develop at TechSoup with the general availability, even though we've been keeping a close, figure of the pulse on what's been happening with machine learning. We use that in a lot of our security tools. We've used that a lot. All of a sudden there was this explosion, right, of Gen AI, basically, and became very generally available. And a lot of us were like, what do we do? We want to empower our staff and our teams to be able to leverage this, but we also want to make sure that we understood the power in it, but also the risk. So we began immediately as a team, started trying to develop some understanding of, the boundaries of this and exactly what's going on technically, but also as it relates to our work with data specifically. As we all know, AI is great for things like, doing things like spell checking and everything's always been doing, right, searching and things like that. But when you start working with data, as Beth mentioned, if we're stewards of data, it's a whole new ballgame. And when you combine that with the fact that there's a lot of fraud happening because with AI, it's made people able to impersonate others more quickly. There's just a lot more automation that can happen from a security perspective or from a cybersecurity perspective on both sides, that there's some caution, hopefully there's some caution and some education that's happening around people when they get a text message saying, hey, look, please give to this, cause, or they get an email with something in it. It's becoming harder and harder to, understand what is, a real sort of ask and what's not an ask. And so developing trust in the sector with your constituents and your funders is more important than ever. And to that extent, I think the more that you disclose, what you're doing as an organization around around how you're using AI, the better. But also know, and ultimately it's you doing the work, and you should let your constituents and your fundraisers know that you're doing the work. But disclose where it is that you may be leveraging AI to assist with some of that where appropriate. Usually that would be in the terms and conditions of the site or wherever it is that you're interacting with your constituents. One of the things that we, was very important as early on was to educate our staff in terms of understanding what it means to use a tool. AI is so prevalent, like you could just open up a chat window or a browser window and it's right there in front of you. And it's very easy to plug anything into it. So one of the things we did very early on was try to educate our teams that, just like social media, with free AI tools, like you are the product, right? You are whatever you feed into a system. They're using that to help train and their systems, and so you are essentially a part of the process. And until you start getting into enterprise products where there's some safeguards about it, you start paying for premium AI tools, you don't have those safeguards aren't there. And that's a super important thing that we've tried to educate our teams on. And so, as Beth will go into a little bit later, that once you go away from doing things like having it spell check you know a message or basically help you craft something that has no data, it's just communication. Do something like let's look at our constituents data. Let's look at this and see how we could best craft a marketing campaign specific to a tailored sort of event or for a tailored campaign. At that point, then when you're working actually with that live data, that's when it gets very, very important that you've gone through and you've checked to make sure that none of that data can get leaked outside of the context of which you have control, and that you're sort of always have agency and control over that. You have custody over that data is the technical term. So remember that there's this concept of data custody. Like you've been provided that data from your constituents. You're in custody of that data, and understanding the boundaries of that, whether that's like Beth had mentioned earlier, it used to be like we'd be concerned about people putting things on a flash drive on their computer. Now it's more like we're concerned about people downloading the data customer list onto their laptop, feeding it into a free ChatGPT tool, and then having it spit out a bunch of stuff. Basically say, oh, look what I found, look what I harvested, look at this prospecting I could do here. That's what we're really trying to educate nonprofits to do more, and understand the risks in that, and know that there's, that with the chain of custody of data, you need to be the one sort of understanding the boundary of where that data is, where what's happening to that data. And ultimately your skills, your fundraising skills are the one that's going to be used here. And AI is just going to augment that in whatever tool you use. So I don't know if that's, Beth, I don't want to hand back to you to see if there's anything you want to continue on that topic or not.
Sure. And Michael, there are certain concerns that donors have had, and there's expressed, right? They're obviously concerned about the privacy and data security, which you've been mentioning, but also the human touch, as well as, you've mentioned to me before disclosures. If your data is used in an AI model that your team has reviewed, what kind of disclosure should they have?
Yeah, and generally that would be within the like we've gone through obviously and updated all of our terms of usage and all of our privacy policy and our statements, so that people understand that okay, this is where we are using this, but but we're also we explicitly state that we're using best efforts to maintain control and custody of that data in such a way that protects the data and the privacy of the individual. Ultimately, it is their data.
And we've agreed that, just to summarize, especially with fundraising, before we move on to how TechSoup has done it, which we could probably talk for hours about. What I'm hearing us and what we practice is starting small. Start with the content, start with the modeling, possibly predictive modeling without user data at all. And if you're going to move to a predictive model or analysis, that's where we put the safeguards around, and you absolutely have to use a bigger team.
Yeah, and there's this concept of anonymization, obviously, right? So you can do a lot with, for example, you can craft messaging, you can craft campaigns, you can do all these things without actually using live data. And that's, I think, what we've recommend a lot of people do, because a lot of the work and the real heavy lifting of AI sometimes is not so much in your replacing your analytics around understanding your donors. Your donors, what they give to, what they want. You're their person, right? But in terms of helping make it faster and quicker to get campaigns out or to see the results of those without necessarily, at a high level, at a high sort of non, like just outcomes, KPIs, things of that nature. That is the stuff that AI is really good at doing quicker and faster to help you become more efficient and a better steward of your donor's dollar. If you think of it that way, if we're being funded by our constituents to do this work, right? We want to do it. We want to do it in a way that's efficient, in a way that uses that funding in a way that is to their best advantage, and so you kind of have to balance that with also, what is my expertise here, and who do I know, and make sure that that happens. It's really when you get around the sort of working with live data. And that being said, I think what we'll see with the systems that you use for donor management, whether it be, we'll see, just like we're seeing in the big enterprise tools, they're starting to get better at being able to say, like if you were working with Salesforce, for example, Salesforce, and and other tools like that. I'm not advocating for any one tool or other, but within that context, there'll be explicit disclaimers like an AI trust center for you to go to and then look and see exactly what they're doing with your data, and specifically the language that you want to look for things around what it does with the data in your prompts. What does it do with that? And also the outputs of the prompts. And that mostly with the large enterprise tools, they will not be using that data to then feed back into a large language model to then train it, because you're paying for that product. But you still need to have your legal team review that language and make sure that that's in line with your policy and with your risk assessment, and then also with your disclosures. And in some cases, you should always write to the privacy department at a company if you have any questions around it, and just explicitly state that you do not want the information from your prompts that are using within the system, the data, to be fed into their system for training. That's super sort of, it's a small little detail, but they will respond and they'll say, thank you, we'll do that.
Absolutely. And we've done that for the majority of
Yeah.
our tools, and we'll dig into that in a second. I just have one more quick thing. We do advocate the experimentation and the testing and of the content that Michael's, and we ask staff, as long as there's no confidential information, to test out different tools. We do have access at TechSoup to a lot of tools, as well as your staff and team. But we strongly encourage everyone to use an ethical framework. And that helps take care of some of the biases and also some of the hallucinations and editing it before it goes out. We like to think of it as, think of talking to an intern. I will give full credit to Marnie Webb, our CEO, who said that to me. And then you also only think of it as a first draft, especially if it's going to important constituents and stakeholders. You never, even internally, we hardly ever send anything out that we've used AI to help us write or analyze without having that human element. And at TechSoup, we've created this ethical framework to go through as well. So, anything to add on that, Michael?
Oh, I think that's excellent. Thank you.
Before we go to questions, we just want to give just a couple minutes on what we've done at TechSoup.
Yeah.
And a couple years, in November 2023, all of us remember AI was available and hitting every aspect, and people were asking about the difference between OpenAI's tools and others. And so our communications team, and at the time under Marnie Webb, who's now our CEO, they jumped on it quickly, and they created guidelines for staff. And we have shared those with the nonprofit sector, and we'll find a way to share them with you guys today.
As well as resources and training on how to, use
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And
exactly.
so then we transitioned, Michael and I, it was Michael's great idea. So I'm curious if you'll share, Michael, why you suggested that we have the AI working group. Because originally we started it small, and now we've expanded it. But do you want to talk for a second about that?
Yeah, I felt as though because of the, because at TechSoup we have access to the resources internally. We have general counsel. We had people who are data privacy experts because we work globally. And what we did was we decided that the best thing for us to do would be to have a cross-functional team representing different aspects of it. Beth representing operations, myself the staff side of it, myself representing data security, and data governance, and then we had a data privacy officer involved, and also somebody on our legal team. And the reason we did that is we wanted everybody's sort of perspective about how it is to best create a policy that would both empower our staff, but also putting some guardrails in place, and then also and then working with leadership, creating a feedback loop of like rolling this stuff out so that we could then begin enabling people with the tooling so that they could do their jobs better, quicker, faster, and smarter, but then also ensuring that, as being, stewards of our constituents' data, that we're doing it with the best effort to maintain that chain of custody over the ownership of the data for our customers.
And I learn a lot from this group, and I feel we've gotten a lot done faster, even though to one of the questions, it has taken us time, and it's not been the most socially acceptable thing to take time to do this. But what we have done is we originally started with the compliance group that Michael's talking about, and we're now working on transitioning it to an amplifying AI group. And we've brought even more cross-functionality and interdisciplinary work, folks who work on training, communication, community. I know Susan Tenby's here. She works on our community team. And we've built an AI hub where we have the policy, we have use cases in a stoplight format so that people can easily identify. Green means okay to use in free tools. Red means absolutely do not ever put it in a free tool, and consider never using it in an enterprise model as well. We have created a prompt library. Our idea is you can't always find Michael and I or the other members of the team. So we've created a just-in-time space, and we've tried to do it with the lens of those who are not familiar with AI but want to get involved. Where can they find on-demand training that we've vetted or used? Where can they find a prompt library? Where can they find other use cases? So we've built that out, and we've also continue. It's kind of like chasing smoke. That's a term I stole from Michael, where all of our tools are spitting out AI functionality all the time. And so our team really has to focus on making sure that we have the data privacy agreements. We have gone in and explored the admin portal, and especially in tools that could contain sensitive information, we've made sure that it doesn't track and train. And that's why we've had to make some, we won't share the decisions here, but we've had to make some pretty difficult decisions as well about which tools we will and won't use at this moment. And some of it is based on where our information and data is internally too. Michael, it looks like you want to add.
Well, I was going to say that, people really, we have some really people internally are really excited to use it, and we welcome that. And luckily, a lot of teams, they understand that we kind of have to walk before we could run a little bit with this stuff, just because it's better to do it right than to have a misstep along the way with something like this.
And we've just really covered the surface because I know we're running out of time and we have some questions. So in the chat, I'm putting a little bit more information about our website and our services. I'm particularly adding a link for Quad, which is a membership organization group, a platform where you can talk with not just TechSoup experts and members, but also other members across our membership and nonprofits to see how they're doing it and to get advice from them. We have a lot of great information about AI policy, use cases, and guidelines, and you can vet them there and reach out for some more support. And also our TechSoup courses. We provide a variety of AI courses on policy as well as other things. And so I think we're going to bounce to some questions. So I don't know if Jen, you're still there. Who else is nervous about what information to provide to AI? Jen, I don't know if you've gone through and pulled some out or if we even have time.
Hi, we've probably got time for one question. You answered one really quick, I think, already about how you made some decisions about what to include, what not to include with AI. There's a great general question here that I think would be a great takeaway. How can nonprofits balance the pressure to adopt AI quickly with the need to build donor trust and avoid misinformation?
Michael, do you want me to jump in or do you want to?
Sure, you go ahead, jump in on.
It's interesting because I know some folks from SF CASA are here as well, and I met with them last week. It's really about what we started the conversation with, is that it's our responsibility to make sure that this data doesn't leak. And so we have to put the guardrails, is what Michael and I call them, guardrails, and not lean so much on policy. And it's so incredibly important. Once that data gets out, you can't pull it back in. And so if you tell that story and then also talk about how detrimental it's today, it's donors, but it can be others, information gets out, it can hurt them for that individual who's trusted you with that data for a long time. So we try to be as transparent as we can with where we're at, and even, have yes buts. So for example, we have been issuing licenses, but I haven't gone through and finished. We didn't even have a chance to talk about it. We have been also in some of our tools implementing confidentiality labels so that certain information won't show up.
Yeah.
And there is that kind of capability in CRM tools that may or may not be you having AI functionality and, spitting out reports and things like that. So we have been working on that, and I haven't finished it yet because it's a big project. And so I am not preventing people from getting licenses, but I give them the AI hub. I remind them about the policy, and we have an alias and a Slack channel that we can talk with others, because we're not the only ones that can answer questions at TechSoup. But I also mention that it's not a hallucination, but because we haven't put the confidentiality labels or other things, that you really have to be a good steward. You have to review before we get those in place. So I think it's just being open and honest, and it really, we don't get to talk about these kind of in the weeds things as operations people, but we are now, and people are coming to us. And so I've been very impressed at TechSoup that we haven't gotten too much flack about the delays, but we have gotten more people coming to us than we ever expected, which is a great sign too. It shows that we're doing something right.
Yeah, and one way to take the pressure off in some ways is to tell yourself, this is what you can do, because there's so much that you can do without getting into necessarily, actually working with the actual data itself. There's so much that you can do before you even get to that point. And I think that, and it's, and even with, I think Paul just mentioned this in the chat, is that even if you do get some warranties and some guarantees or some warranties, you should still use caution. So
and socialize it, like Michael said. There's so much you can do, and the more your staff talks about it together, the more likelihood that you'll be good stewards together and build trust.
I love that. There's collective trust with our organizations, and the trust with our donors, and all of that tied together. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Michael, for going into your experiences, going into the broader kind of world of misinformation around AI, and sharing your expertise with us. We're so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, we are moving on ahead with our day on the impact stage. Really quickly, we're always going to ask for your feedback after each session. So let us know what you think. Let us know what you learned. Let us know what you're interested in learning more about. Take a minute, share your feedback, and we'll pass on all the love to our speakers and use this to inform future summits that we host. Really quickly, I just want to jump into what's coming up next. So on the Amplify stage, we have our keynote From Fear to Scale, AI Fundraising and the Leap Forward with Mariam Nusrat. We have the innovation stage where you can talk about dangerous distractions with Cherian Koshi from Kindsight and Mallory. And on this stage, we'll be talking about trust by design, personalization and human connection in the age of AI. To get to any of these sessions, just check out the schedule. You're probably super familiar with how to get there now, but on the top of your screen, click schedule, and you can go ahead and choose the next session you want to attend. Selfishly, I hope it is our impact stage. I will see you right back here in a few minutes.